You know, as gardeners and weekend warriors, I think it's more important than ever that we all start thinking more ecologically as we go about our daily practices in and around the garden to be better environmental stewards. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 simple steps that you can take to be a more ecological gardener no matter where you live. So step number 1 to ecological gardening is to focus on building your soil health through consistent applications of organic materials, such as lots of compost, like this right here I make in my compost bins, but let me show you what it does to the soil. This creates the ultimate growing environment. And here's the cool thing, the healthier the soil, the more resilient your plants are, the less attractive they are to pests, and the more resilient they are to taking on diseases, which means no need to have all those harsh chemicals in use, and you're also saving on water and other precious resources. So definitely focus on building the soil health. Step number 2 is to use a generous layer of mulch over all exposed soil surfaces. Now you have a lot of options for that. This happens to be arborist wood chips. This is a free option, which makes it extra special. And this was from a tree takedown in my neighborhood. But it's a great way to get a lot of mulch that you can have access to quickly. But you could use straw, you could use grass clippings, you could use compost or shredded leaves. Sky's the limit there. Suffice it to say that a generous layer of mulch above the soil surface is just as important as focusing on soil health below the surface. Now, from an ecological gardening standpoint, mulch does several things very well. First of all, it retains a lot of moisture. Secondly, it blocks the opportunity for weed seeds to germinate because it prevents the sunlight from getting to them so they don't sprout. And number 3, there are diseases that live in the soil that would potentially splash back up onto the foliage, but because a generous layer of mulch is on top, that can't happen. And then 4th, as this mulch is breaking down, it's helping to improve the soil, right back to number 1. So you get 2 for 1 when you're using mulch on top and focusing on your soil health too. Step number 3 is to add more native plants. Now this is one I am sure that you've been hearing a lot about lately, and for good reason. Considering deforestation and urban sprawl and habitat loss and of course climate change, we are losing our native plants at an unsustainable rate. And it's up to us gardeners and weekend warriors to do something about that. So if we could target maybe a goal of 70% native plants in our landscapes, we would be making a huge difference. And that's what I'm doing here, including in my vegetable garden with the black-eyed Susans and the asters and the coneflowers. In fact, we leave these up all through the fall and winter as a source of seed for the birds and hollow stems for solitary bees, and that is so important. But if you can focus on adding more natives, you'll not only have a beautiful and bountiful garden for yourself, but you'll create a beautiful place to attract and protect a lot of that wildlife that you want too. Step number 4, get rid of those invasives. Now we already talked about the importance of the natives and why we need to have them, but equally important, probably more so, is to get rid of the invasives. And here's an example of that on my property. I'm walking it and I'm looking and I see some very aggressive vines girdling some trees. And I don't want that, of course. And then I have some big leaf magnolias right here in front, which are very precious to me as a native plant. So I want to eliminate the risk. But when you have those invasives, they're so aggressive, they're going to deny the opportunity of the natives to not only establish, but to thrive by denying them the light and the air and the water and the nutrients that they're going to need to really take off. So step number 1 is to walk your property periodically and not only identify the natives that you have on your site, but also the invasives. And when you find them, you need to get them out of there if you want to have a chance for those natives to really take off. Step number 5 is to add more diversity to your landscape and garden. Now, if you want to make a big impact on how it looks while at the same time attracting the beneficial insects and wildlife that we want, you need to have diversity there. For example, some wildlife, especially the insects, have special mouth parts that allows them to access the nectar only based on the type of flower that is suitable for that mouth part. Hence the reason for diversity there. Another example, some insects are host specific to the types of plants that they need for their food source. A good example of that are monarch butterflies with their caterpillars and the direct relationship to milkweed. It's their exclusive food source. So in the spirit of ecological gardening, a biodiverse habitat is very important. And the side benefit is it's a lot more pretty too. Number 6, make the switch to rechargeable equipment to maintain your landscape. So let's address the elephant in the room. That gas-powered equipment it is putting out a lot of air pollution and noise pollution. So if you're still using those to cut your grass or whack your weeds or edge the driveway or blow the leaves, I urge you to consider going to Rechargeable. And these days, there is equipment for anything that you're already using that's gas related and a lot of other options too. Now, I made the switch a few years back and there is no going back. And I love the option that I have with interchanging the battery from one piece of equipment to the next. I can change out the parts. Plus, I don't have to go to the gas station every couple of weeks to refill the can or take it in for a tune-up once a year because the equipment doesn't start. And if you're wondering about the power of the rechargeables versus the gas options, don't give it another thought. These days, these rechargeable units go head to head with the gasoline options. Number 7, and this is a big one, eliminate the use of synthetic chemicals and opt for natural solutions when the need arises. If you are serious about becoming an ecological gardener or improving your skills, you need to break your dependence, if you have one, on using harsh synthetic pesticides. Now, no doubt those products work and they work very well, but it's the unintended consequences and the ripple effect that we don't often give consideration to, and sometimes those are the most important things. But take it from me, if you follow what we've talked about in this video so far, then you can eliminate that need to even use those chemicals. And for example, if you want to add nutrients to your soil, there are nice alternatives for that, such as organically derived sources of nitrogen, such if you're trying to add that to your lawn or your landscape. Milorganite is a great source. Or for smaller applications, you could use cottonseed meal or poultry manure or compost, and those are just a few of the options. But I hope in what we covered today in these 7 steps, you're inspired to become or improve your skills as an ecological gardener.